even if I would hate Bitcoin, I think with today's standing of Bitcoin, I would not have a 0% allocation. It would just be insanely dumb. You can be in a society trending towards that, or you can be in a society trending towards maybe a little more individual freedom, a little more economic freedom. If you have the choice, you'd rather be in a state being pro-Bitcoin than in a state being pro-Fiat and trying to prohibit Bitcoin. Game theory says there will be nations adopting Bitcoin, right? I mean, at 21, we've talked about this, I don't know, 4 to 5 years ago, and now it really happens. High time preference is some kind of the mental end result of inflationary money. We've come too far in centralization and in bureaucratic overhead that I see any possibility for them to make the U-turn and say, okay, let's go towards free markets and prosperity now. I just don't see that, to be honest. Do you? My name is Fab. Initially, I co-started the German Bitcoin podcast 21, which some of the viewers or listeners of yours might know. It then trended towards a grassroots community movement in the German-speaking regions, I'd say. In parallel, I co-founded the Bitcoin publishing company Apricot Media, which until today is quite successful. We brought books like The Bitcoin Standard, Broken Money, The Price of Tomorrow from Jeff Booth into the German language. And I'd say this really helped the German-speaking Bitcoiners to increase speed of adoption, I'd say. And the third thing I'm doing in this space since 2022 is I am the head of content and education at Coinfinity, a Bitcoin-only broker that, just as my publishing company, really wants to hit hard with Bitcoin education, because at Coinfinity we think that this is the right way to gain customers. You know, you could, of course, pay millions of euros or dollars for Instagram or social media ads, but you can as well start building a relationship with your customer just by educating them, and then hoping they'll land at your service or use your product someday after. And until today, that paid off really well. We are growing in the Bitcoiner space. There's that. And the last and newest pillar of what I'm doing in the Bitcoin space is I am co-hosting the Unter Druck podcast, which in English means Under Pressure podcast, with Luca Rolle, who's a social media finance influencer, I'd say. And there we again, and I think that's in general my main focus in the Bitcoin space. We are trying to bring the idea of Bitcoin to an even further circle of folks, the finance and ETF guys who maybe still think it's a scam and still think they are good in investing by choosing stocks or buying ETFs, and we slowly want to bring them to not just entrepreneurship and philosophy in general, but as well to Bitcoin as the logical conclusion of thinking about money and finances.
For me also, the German-speaking community, like there's always the grassroots movement of a specific area, and then there's how the elite of the politics and bigger people kind of perceive it. And in Germany and in the German-speaking area entirely, the difference between how far we are already in the grassroots movement and how slow we are on the politics level is, I think, the biggest in the whole world. I don't have any studies to support that. It's just my subjective feeling. But if you look at America, the grassroots movement is kind of strong there. I hear how many people show up to meetups and stuff like that. So they have a strong grassroots movement. But also politicians slowly starting to get it, and there's a lot of discussions. Then I see on the European level or like on the German level, there are rarely even discussions on a big scale. but the community is really strong when you look at full node operators, when you look at the meetup sizes and on all of those things. How do you see that?
I totally agree. I think the gap is the at least biggest I'm aware of internationally. And if politicians in the EU or Germany are talking about Bitcoin, it's mostly about should they prohibit it in any way, or how should they tax it, or should they tax it higher? I think the gap, I don't really understand why it is. I don't know if it's just the EU's influence as a, let's say, bureaucratic monster, or if it's Germans themselves who, because of the German past and hyperinflations, are cautious with things like Bitcoin, while they should just with Bitcoin not be cautious at all, because Bitcoin would be the thing saving them from inflation or hyperinflation. But I have to admit, that's a tough point to get if you're like in normie world, you have your 9-to-5 job, you don't even have time to read a book here and there, then it's quite complicated to grasp Bitcoin in its completeness. I mean, nobody will ever get Bitcoin completely, but just starting to understand all the different shades it has and the different topics it touches.
Yeah, that's super interesting when you look at the current situation, because I talk with a lot of Americans, obviously with an English speaking podcast, and I always am a little bit envy that they can talk about the politics stuff. I'm like, oh, like, but it's hard to do that in Germany. How do you actually look at 2025? What's going on with Bitcoin? I think 2024 was a very significant year with the ETF, with the halving, with the 100K mark. What do you kind of expect from this year, or what we have already accomplished, like we are in April?
I mean, as much as I don't like nation states or politicians buying, having, holding, or talking about Bitcoin in general, because it's freedom technology, there sure is a little bit of envy looking towards the Americans. I think 2025 will be the year where maybe the US, because of the reserve talks, but maybe also other nation states will clearly position themselves towards Bitcoin, like not just with the current holdings, but maybe announcing additional reserves, or announcing maybe even repricing their gold reserves and switching some of it to Bitcoin. And this will, I think in 2025, we might see a big geopolitical shift towards Bitcoin. The Overton window will go even further towards Bitcoin being a legitimate asset. In 2024, the Overton window shift has already been extremely fast, and I think in 2025 this will get even more extreme. And unfortunately, I think there will be some states that position themselves in favor, but there will be a lot of states, and I'm pretty sure the EU itself and all its member states will position themselves against Bitcoin. The past years have shown us that they tend towards centralization very heavily. And think of Trump whatever you want, but you could argue he's at least a little bit more free market than, for example, the Biden administration was. And the trend in the EU is going towards less free market, more centralization, more control, more capital controls. And that's why I think there will be a huge shift in politics, in geopolitics. And what I do not really see is that the countries where you and I, we both live, will be at the front of innovation and understanding Bitcoin and understanding it as a monetary asset to save wealth, to just bring to just freeze the energy you could hold with your work and bring it to the future. I think this is pretty sad, and I don't think we have any chance here by just I don't know, writing letters to politicians and stuff. I'm afraid the EU has to learn this the hard way, and this will be the only way to make an economic and individual liberty 180, let's say.
This is what you just said in the beginning was super interesting, because I myself also am not a big fan of nations buying Bitcoin, which is the hard stance to have in 2025 when there's so much nation states cheering going on. And it's really hard, because on the one hand, obviously Bitcoin is permissionless. It's for everyone. As Jeff Booth says, like the worst thing about Bitcoin is that your enemies can buy it also. But at the same time, we want freedom. We want less state. We want more individuals. So the further out we go without nation states, the better it probably is. And then on the second side of it, you don't want nations to buy, but you want your own nations to buy it early as the other nations.
yeah. Look, the thing is, game theory says there will be nations adopting Bitcoin, right? I mean, Bitcoin is for enemies, as you said. So if this game theory is set and clear, and I mean, I know Swansea, we've talked about this, I don't know, 4 to 5 years ago, and now it really happens. But if it's clear that it happens, the choice is obvious. If you want to live in a state that at least appreciates Bitcoin in a way, even if you don't like them buying it for their reserves. I get that. That's totally my opinion. But the least thing you want to have is being in a state that does not appreciate Bitcoin at all, thinks it's black market, illegal black market money, and doesn't own Bitcoin themselves, going in a future where obviously Bitcoin becomes the global store of value reserve asset. Then this just means for your jurisdiction, you will have a bad economy. You will go down in probably one day hyperinflation. You will trend towards a high time preference society. Yeah, I'd say high time preference is some kind of the mental end result of inflationary money. And you can be in a society trending towards that, or you can be in a society trending towards maybe a little more individual freedom, a little more economic freedom, and therefore more prosperity in general. Game theory is a bitch regarding that, right? I think you can hate nation states adopting Bitcoin, and at the same time just logically say, and I have the point that if you have the choice, you'd rather be in a state being pro Bitcoin than in a state being pro Fiat and trying to prohibit Bitcoin or I don't know, put Bitcoiners in jail. What I mostly get as answer when I'm saying this is, yeah, but I'd love to be in a state that doesn't want any Bitcoin, doesn't hold any Bitcoin, but just lets me act freely and lets me, I don't know, buy and sell and transact my Bitcoin tax-free. And I say, like, that's not going to happen. Why should anyone do this? Maybe if the Argentinians are lucky, maybe Milei is bringing up such a legislation. That's possible, but I really don't see that in the EU or in Germany. We've come too far in centralization and in bureaucratic overhead that I see any possibility for them to make the U-turn and say, okay, let's go towards free markets and prosperity now. I just don't see that, to be honest. Do you?
Absolutely not. And it's a really good point. I've never heard someone say that, because you either have a nation state, a government that says, oh, we love Bitcoin. We like Bitcoin to prosper in our country, then they will obviously buy it. Like if you understand Bitcoin and you want Bitcoin to prosper in your country, it would be almost foolish not to buy it. And the other side is, we don't want Bitcoin and we don't care for it. And at the same time, you see how that crowd that embraces Bitcoin gets stronger and bigger.
Exactly.
You really have to work against that. Otherwise, you as a government, and those are individuals, will get pressed out of it. So you either fight against Bitcoin or you embrace Bitcoin. As it gets bigger, more and more people, more and more nation states will embrace it. So it's almost an impossible state where the state will leave you alone with your Bitcoin and you can do whatever you want with it. And they don't have Bitcoin. Like, that's an impossible state to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's one state, and that's what I meant. If you really get an anarcho-capitalist government that says, like, okay, let's see, we will shrink as much as possible. We don't want to hold anything as a state. No problem. We'll shrink. We just want, I don't know, 1% of your income as a tax or whatever, or a fixed fee. Then that might be possible. Like if the state then says, look, we are just having this and that task as a state and not more. We don't need to hold any reserve assets. I'd love that. Of course, maybe Milei is doing something like that in the future in Argentina. I don't know. Never trust a politician. But I just don't see it for where we live. It's just, in my opinion, it's like delusional that any modern Western state that is balls deep in fiat, in the fiat game, will take this position. So, and therefore, as you said, I just see these two positions you just mentioned as a likely outcome. And then it doesn't matter what the position would be that I'd wish for if it's just absolutely unrealistic.
Are you in the camp? Like there are two camps when it comes to fiat currencies and Bitcoin within Bitcoin. The one is like, yeah, we will probably always have some sort of government token, some sort of fiat currency, even like 100, 200 years in. And then the other camp that says, oh, Bitcoin will destroy fiat. Then there's like a lot of nuance to it of like, will it do it in 3 years? I think the most aggressive was 3 years, which was a year ago. So it should be in 2 years. And then they're like, okay, maybe 10 years, maybe 50 years, maybe 100 years down the road, there's no fiat anymore. Where are you more of like, there will always be a fiat government token in some sense to pay taxes and stuff like that? Or this will not make sense with Bitcoin?
That's a tough one. I mean, none of us knows the future. What I think is that maybe in a far distant future, I don't know, there will be countries just setting on Bitcoin. Like, they won't explicitly say you have to pay everything in Bitcoin. I think there will be very free market and say you decide upon yourselves. And then, as we think, Bitcoin is the most likely outcome as a money. I think this will exist, and I think for a pretty long time, lots of other countries will pre-exist, acknowledging Bitcoin and maybe even appreciating it, but still having their fiat currency because they just don't want to lose the power of stealing others' purchasing power. I mean, I'd say that's the most powerful weapon on earth that we have because most people don't even understand it. It's the perfect theft. So lots of nations will really try to prevent giving up on that. But in the real long run, and I don't know what this means, it might be 50, might be 100 years, all societies, the whole globe has to tend towards this because people will just, over the years, see the difference between their country and countries really just leaving it up to their citizens what money they use. They will see there will be less friction, there will be more prosperity and stuff. And so I think the free market will fix it towards that. Since we now have this incorruptible technology, the free market will bring it up as the number one monetary candidate. The only thing is, I have no idea how long this can take and how long single nation states will be successful in trying to prevent it.
Yeah, I'm shocked how long this fiat game already works. when you think about it, true. If you really understand what fiat is, you understand that there's someone else stealing from you. And then you see that most people save in that very thing and support that very thing how is that still possible after 50 years? So like I mean, you can go further back the inflationary monetary system, but like let's stick with the 50 years of the US dollar since 1971. Well, that's already 54 years. I'm probably saying 50 years, but yeah, it's kind of amazing that this thing is still going on.
Yeah, I just can't wrap my brain around how this we've been on a gold standard, and they literally managed to rug pull everyone in the world without anyone noticing, or without the general public noticing. That's still something I just can't grasp. Like, my brain explodes every time I think about it. Someone just did the biggest rug pull in human history, and everything just went on. The world just kept on turning. Nobody really cared. And all, I don't know, 20 to 50 years, we learn again. A new fiat currency will go down, and we'll find all kinds of explanations except for centralized money creation, which is quite literally insane to me.
There's always, when you look at the history of inventions, for example, the steam engine was there for a long time before it was widely used, because they figured out I mean, that's nerdy, but like the condenser has to be separate from where the thing is going, so you can keep it hot and have it cool somewhere else. That was a very shitty explanation, but
never mind.
But the point is that things can be a long time around and just get then one small adjustment, and all of a sudden it has a wide use. And I think maybe gold was such an amazing thing, but it then turned into, hey, how can we use it on a global scale? How can we transfer gold from long distances? And how I think about it, maybe we needed fiat to find Bitcoin, and fiat is kind of the Blu-ray that sounded really good, but all of a sudden it was like nobody used it anymore because the digital version came along.
Wow, I love that. Fiat is the Blu-ray. Totally agree. Gold was literally killed by its one biggest flaw, and as you said, it wasn't not being digital, but it was not being able to permissionlessly send around the globe, which, as we know, is only possible with a digital thing we know today. They didn't know like years ago, but that was the one thing that I think killed it and made fiat possible. As we know, fiat has been just paper gold, and then someone just sat there and thought, well, let's try this, and then they just rug pulled everyone, and it just worked. And I think in let's say 250, maybe 500, maybe more, I don't know, years, thankfully, fiat money will just be that one funny moment in history, like where they look back and they just say, "Oh my gosh, they didn't really try that, right?" Where we had like those 50 to 100 years where we just completely derailed and didn't get that fiat money was not a good idea at all, where people will make fun of us, like, and then they gave the money printing license to nation states, like to politicians. How stupid is that? And I think all of us, you, me, and everyone who's calling themselves a Bitcoiner today, we're helping in making this as fast as possible. Like this, what we all try is making fiat the idiotic historic anomaly of monies, I'd say. If this is becoming true, I think we were quite successful.
This is so, because there's like this theory, and I mostly got it from Seyr, that you shouldn't hate on things, you should love on other things, but sometimes you really have to make people aware how bad fiat is for them to even notice how good Bitcoin is. For someone that thinks fiat is good, they're not ready to understand Bitcoin yet. So I'm struggling with that, because I don't want to fall in the category of the gold bugs where they always doomed fiat, and you're like, the crash is coming right away, and like, no, like the crash probably doesn't come like next week. It will take a long time. It's like a really big boat. It's a really big Titanic, and it sinks very slowly, if it sinks at all. So we have a long story, and the network effect of fiat is also sometimes, I think, underestimated. We talk about network effects in social medias, where Facebook is still the biggest social media. Now they bought other social medias to make it even bigger. But fiat also is basically a social currency that lives from how many people are in it. And the more people are in it, the value goes up from that. So the network effect of that turning down is super, super hard. And even Bitcoiners like us, I don't know about you, but I still use fiat almost on a daily basis, because it's just not working otherwise. You really have to jump through a lot of hoops to get to a full Bitcoin standard and not touch fiat anymore. I have now an income stream that is purely in Bitcoin, and an expenses stream that's purely in Bitcoin, where there's like a cash flow that's just staying in Bitcoin all the time, from I get it to I spend it again, which is absolutely amazing. And it's growing. But there's still a lot of fiat in my cash flow. So I think it's just, I don't really have a point or a question with that, but it's really mind blowing how strong that fiat network is, and how hard it is to get away from that.
Absolutely, that's what I meant by it's this genius kind of theft, right? I mean, every monetary system at the end is a system of belief. Of course, if you have a free market, people will choose the best money because of its properties. But still, at the end of the day, every money is just a system of trust and belief. If enough people think a good that is just a monetary good is valuable, then it is. If suddenly everyone changes his and her opinion, then this will just change. I think this is as well why hyperinflation can happen. Hyperinflation in the end stadium with a fiat currency is not because suddenly there are such excessive unit numbers of the money, but because trust completely gets lost, and that's why nobody values the money itself anymore, and that's why the price of money suddenly hyperinflates, and you can pay anything with it. And the genius thing about inflation is that just too few people get what it really is, because you have one or two economic theories that just say it's necessary and it's okay. But like talking about being democratic and transparent and fair, which all Western democracies claim they are, I don't know of any constitution or basic law or state law that even explains that inflation or the state's right to create money is some kind of tax or theft. Like, nobody transparently talks about this. It's just, I mean, it's not really a secret, because with basic logic you can understand it, but on I'd say rule of law and stuff, it's just a secret nobody talks about. It's the hidden tax nobody talks about, that is listed nowhere in any statistics on I don't know how big is the tax burden in different European countries. You never see like what was the money supply growth over the years, and that's what I think is like the big lie we all live up to, and not enough people talk about. And that's why I cannot totally agree with Seyr, by the way, whom I think is in the position partly where he has to say this, because otherwise his agenda of like US politicians adopting Bitcoin won't work. Like if you go to them just by saying, hey guys, we will lose our global money printing license, and this will be the new asset. Let's just kill the dollar, and this thing is way better. You won't be successful at all. I think the pitch has to be a little smarter at these levels. But I can't agree with him here. Like fiat really is an evil thing. Like most people promoting fiat maybe don't understand it or don't know what they promote, but in its core, it's just evil and it's immoral because, as I said, no one clearly and transparently articulates that it just steals from you. That's just not fair.
And the US is in such a unique position because if they really figure Bitcoin out and if they really start aggressively buying Bitcoin now, maybe even already started and not telling people because it would be a foolish thing to tell people before you buy it, the price shoots up. So I would buy without telling people. They can really prolong their fiat power as long as possible. And maybe the US dollar is then the longest standing fiat currencies where all other fiat currencies are dying because they also have a huge gold reserve. They also have a huge Bitcoin reserve. They also have other strategic reserves. With that, it's super interesting how this pitch could go to Trump because he like make America great again. Like America should be the world power. This is the only way. If you really think about it, they have to aggressively and secretly buy Bitcoin right now.
Absolutely, and I think we both are saying this without cheering for the US or any other state to do this, but just in analyzing the incentives and the game theory. And I mean, I've been saying this for years. A possible outcome or possible theory is that hopefully, not hopefully this happening, but hopefully the last one happening. I think it could really be that the US is the last world superpower existing. Because like if they adopt Bitcoin, they will have so much capital that they can at least for another 50 to 100 years, let's say, finance their lifestyle and their position in the world until if the world adopts Bitcoin, until it slowly erodes. Because as we both know, a state will never be a profitable business or profitable service. They always spend more money than they get. And if you will have to in the long run, I guess, if you give up on the monopoly of money creation, one day you will have no Bitcoin savings left, even as a nation state. And that's why I think if you are the US, again, that's not something I wish for and I want to promote. But if you are the US and you want to stay in the position you are right now, being the superpower, and maybe being the last big superpower, if Bitcoin is what we both think it is and lots of other people think it is, you have to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible, and then you can stay the world superpower for as long as you still have your Bitcoin holdings. And after that, I would hope the world will fall apart into, I don't know, thousands of small countries being in a free market competition. I hope there would and will be way less huge and big wars, just because a hard money system as Bitcoin makes cooperation always the better, cheaper, and more efficient alternative to corruption, which I hope will even be true on nation state level. It is on an individual level, I'd say. And yeah, I think this might be one of the possible outcomes, the US being the world's last big imperial superpower. And after that, hopefully 1,000 golden years or so, or 1,000 orange years, I should say.
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange, but if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if you're in the jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. 1,000 orange years. I just want to bring that up because I just thought about that. You probably are aware of the Ray Dalio's principles of changing the world order.
Yeah,
and
sure.
This is the original one from Ray Dalio. The theory is around for quite some time now. It's probably like some years old already, where the China is actually coming up and the US is falling down.
Absolutely.
And the thing is,
yeah, that one.
That one
I posted it once. Yeah, that's so funny.
And you're basically saying that the US is now on the downward trajectory of being a world superpower.
I'd say so.
Not China is coming up, but actually Bitcoin is coming up and decentralizing nations.
I mean, I absolutely agree that China is coming up and that they would be the next superpower. But then I think when I posted this graphic, there was just a line going straight up in orange. There was Bitcoin. It was just like crashing the party. Like there's the US coming down, China coming up, and then it's just bang, Bitcoin. All of your models destroyed, as we love to say as Bitcoiners. Maybe that's just what I wish for, but I also think it's not so unlikely on a game theory perspective.
And then we come to something really interesting. I saw one video of, I forgot which one. Maybe it was with Nico or with Roman, where you were interviewed, where you said that you said a 0% Bitcoin allocation means that you think that Bitcoin. You're basically betting against Bitcoin and you think Bitcoin is going to die, somewhere along those lines. You said it, which was like, that's so powerful, the orange pill people. If you make them aware, because I see some people saying like, hey, I don't want to deal with investing. I don't want to deal with Bitcoin because it's very risky. They don't realize by not making a decision towards Bitcoin, they're making a decision against Bitcoin. Unintentionally, they just don't make any decision, but that's in a decision against Bitcoin.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean that's the not so well-known concept, and in my opinion, very important concept of opportunity cost, right? The moment you say, I have a 0% Bitcoin allocation, even if you've never heard of Bitcoin and therefore have a 0% allocation of Bitcoin, your signal to the market is, I think this thing is going to die. And that's what you bet on. You think in the future, this thing has to have zero value, otherwise you'd have a small allocation. And especially, we use this framework, especially when talking to high net worth individuals or companies, because like if someone has no savings rate at all, I mean, what for would I tell them? Oh, you have a 0% Bitcoin allocation. You're betting against Bitcoin, and they'll just answer you, bro, I'm betting against myself. I can't even save anything, and then of course they don't have the headspace to think about what their portfolio allocation is. But with companies that strive to survive over the coming years, and with high net worth individuals that often don't want to make the highest returns, but just want to manifest their purchasing power and bring it to future generations, just not losing it. That pitch is very powerful because it's just absolutely true. If in the year 2025, where the world's superpower has announced a Bitcoin strategic reserve, you say, I have a 0% allocation in my portfolio, that really is a decision. I mean, it is not just unknown opportunity cost anymore. It's, if you're high net worth, or if you call yourself an investor or a finance guy, it's just literally a decision saying this thing is going to zero. And if it's not, you are the one bearing the consequences and losing out. And even if I would hate Bitcoin, I think with today's standing of Bitcoin, I would not have a 0% allocation. It would just be insanely dumb.
Yeah, it's a question of like, how many Bitcoin does Peter Schiff has?
To be honest, I often think he's playing us a little. It's just an attention game. I think that guy has Bitcoin, and probably, I mean, he's pretty rich, I guess. Probably has more Bitcoin than a lot of other guys calling themselves Bitcoiners.
He probably has more Bitcoin than like 99% of Bitcoin Twitter.
That's a hard truth, but I think so as well.
Yeah, it would be so fun if he once just like posts a public address of like, oh, like I own that one, and it has like 20,000 Bitcoin on there.
But yeah, I think this would be the day where Bitcoin Twitter would be like silent for 24 hours. There would like be no tweet, and everybody would be there like, oh fuck, he just played us.
He how does he engaged farmed us? I don't know if that's a word, but
it is now.
Yeah,
it
is now. And his son also was. But yeah, let's not contribute to his engagement farming.
True.
One thing that I really was interesting. I talked with Danny from Coin Corner, and it was super interesting. We dived really deep into what this bull cycle is all about. And we discovered basically that this bull cycle is really carried by institutions and by high net worth individuals and by people with deeper pockets, and by people that already have been in Bitcoin. So a few things that we have seen is the people that buy Bitcoin now are buying more. So the same addresses that bought Bitcoin in 2017, where there's like hype that there was like a lot of people bought, but only a small amount. Now, not as many buy, but like a lot more. And when you see things like Google Trends, for example, we are at, what was it? I think 7% of where we were at from 2017. And I think like 25% where we were from 2021. So like really down from those levels, but the price is higher, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically said the bull market for retail hasn't even started. We have seen a bull market in the price, but retail FOMO and all the craziness never really happened this bull cycle. And now I think you're working now for Coinfinity for 2-3 years, if I'm correct. And Confinity is an interesting position because they have been around for so long, and they probably gathered data for long and have the insights. How do you look at this bull cycle versus 2017, 2021?
Mm-hmm. I mean, what I can say is that in the past months, like especially the run up to over 100,000 in price, we've been growing as fast as we have, I'd say, never been before. That was really insane. But of course, this was as well through people already being Bitcoiners, finding us and recognizing us as a brand they thought is new, but we have quite a long history. But I think there has been a small retail bull run already, but I totally agree that we are nowhere compared to, I don't know, 2017 levels or so, where it was like in the news every day and everybody was freaking out. I think this could be upon us still, but what is also possible, in my opinion, is if like Trump's plans don't work out, and finding viable tariff and economic solutions with the whole world again doesn't work out as planned by him. I think we could also like land in a total recession where Bitcoin gets hit as well, because I think still we are not at the point where enough people understand in such a economic recession that Bitcoin is the safe haven, that price will show it. Like Bitcoiners will of course use Bitcoin as a safe haven, but if most of people don't do it, it will just brutally show in price. So I think those might be the two outcomes in the near future, let's say 2025. Either retail bull run is upon us, or somebody is canceling the whole party because the whole world has bigger problems. Let's say it like that. And there I would just differentiate between why in an economic recession Bitcoin's price will drop much lower than it is now in 2025 versus in like 20, 30 years. Because if enough people understand what it is, it will be their main savings tool. The more the economy is uncertain, the more they will get into Bitcoin. But it's just a question of the adoption grade, you know. I mean, if we're like at 20, 30 or 40% world adoption of using Bitcoin as a store of value, it will be the only thing going up during a recession, but we're just not there yet.
I actually like bear markets. I actually like recessions. It really shows, like, okay, there's two things. In Bitcoin bear markets, you see who's really there for the long haul and who's really building something for the long haul in Bitcoin, and who was just there for the bull market to capture some of the upside.
Yeah.
Both with people that build in Bitcoin, make content in Bitcoin, but also those who buy Bitcoin. So like in all categories you see it. But also in bear markets outside of Bitcoin, so like in recessions, you see which businesses are actually profitable, which businesses are actually making sense in the market, and you flood out those who don't make sense. So I'm actually a big fan of those events where reality comes back and we are not living anymore in the dreamland.
Yeah, in general, I am as well. The only problem is that like the higher the fiat system, how do I say this, pulled the ribbon up, the harder it crashes down. And if it's a heavy recession, it doesn't just cost jobs, it may cost lives, right? All just because of a highly manipulated, very volatile system, literally standing on a house of cards, which hopefully might be very different. And I mean, we've seen historically is very different on a solid monetary basis. Like, for example, gold, we have a lot of history there. where of course also jobs get lost and businesses die, but they don't just die and get lost all at once, like with one economic event. They just die if they're not profitable. But also they do not survive, like Volkswagen for 20 years, although being not profitable at all. This, of course, those are like market interventions and anomalies that really wouldn't exist in a hard monetary standard, I'd say.
Yeah, it's that baseline of reality where you don't have the ups, but then also you don't have the downs that much. If there's like a hard money standard where we don't inflate it and we don't spend as much as we possibly can to please everyone, no matter what position you're in. If you're waking up from that, it's a hard fall. And one thing that I just want to mention from the previous thing I forgot was the craziness in the bull market we usually have. When you remember 2017, we had the ICOs, the shitcoinery. 2021 was NFTs. It even captured me. Like I was full on in video games and weird things.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I got away from that. It was like I got Orange Pill in 2020. So 2021 was logically my altcoin shitcoin phase. Went pure Bitcoin only in 2022. We haven't had this crazy. I mean, MicroStrategy is probably the most craziness that we have in this cycle, but it's a different story, right? It's actually a company that makes sense and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like Florian Bruce's perspective on that. Also a German Bitcoiner and podcaster, and he says he thinks this cycle is the last altcoin cycle because they went from we are the better Bitcoin to Bitcoin is cool, but we do something else very good, to like, you know, Web3, smart contracts, blah, blah, blah. That they went to, yeah, look, it's just about art now with the NFT craze. And now they're like being honest, to just say in general, they're being honest by saying, yeah, look, we're just meme coins. Yeah, just trade me. I'm just a meme coin. You might go bankrupt, or you might do a 50x. Let's see. And the funny thing is that the promise, and I'm not speaking about specific coins here, right? Just the trends, as you said, ICOs, NFTs, Web3, blah blah blah. The narrative, the trend always switched over time, and now it's kind of just being honest. Yeah, look, we're just gambling technology. Gamble if you want to, and that's why I think it might be possible that if the bull run continues in 2025 and we might see new Bitcoin highs, that there might be one or two of those meme coins flourishing, let's say like this. But as soon as we enter bear market territory, I think we might finally get rid of them. Like I think it might be possible that with the honest narrative of just saying, look, we are just here to gamble, the things might just die off, because if at one point of time you just admitted that you don't make any sense and there's no like prosperous future in your project, and it's really just about gambling, it will just go away, I guess, or it will be so obviously gambling that nobody will ever fall into this trap again. And I'd really hope for this. Maybe here as well, I'm just dreaming, and it might not be true. But of course, I would hope for that, because the more fiat systems derail and walk towards centralization and hyperinflation, the more, as I said, people get a high time preference and try and like and want to gamble. And therefore, I would hope that that this last trend will just make them die off, and then most people will. I mean, imagine how many people would already have ended up on Bitcoin if they wouldn't get distracted by ICOs, NFTs, blah blah blah, and now the meme coin that makes you rich overnight.
It's a powerful thing. By the way, for the people, Florian Bruce was on my channel. Like it was awesome to talk with him, and it was also a very popular episode for people that might want to have a second listen after that. It was really cool, and I just see Mark from the Bitcoin Hotel. I without noticing, I stole his thumbnail. I have a little bit different title, so it still counts. I guess. I hope so. But yeah, like Bruce is really cool. I think we went with Bruce in our podcast with the name, as you said. It's easier for English people, Bruce and Florian, but it's like Florian Bruce.
Yeah, sure.
It's really cool. One thing that I'm always curious, especially with people that are really entrenched in the community and working in Bitcoin, like you do, how has Bitcoin impacted your life or changed you?
That's a good one. I mean, what a lot of Bitcoiners or folks say, and most people often don't believe it, but I can guarantee you it really happened, that Bitcoin dramatically lowered my time preference. I really, it's just a different feeling if there is a savings tool you can look forward to. Like, you get excited when saving, because not for the short term, but the energy I'm now conserving with this asset, I can at least keep it and get it back, and then maybe buy something with it in 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, and that just makes you feel excited for saving, and it makes you think about the long-term consequences of your life choices more, I'd say. It made me think way more about starting a family, buying, aka building a home and stuff. Things that are big goals, but big goals that have a long distance time horizon. That's what it made with me. Before Bitcoin, I was somehow interested in geopolitics, and I started to understanding the fiat system, but there has never been anyone or anything like proposing a good solution. Even the solution of the most state critical guys has always been, we need more regulations to prevent, I don't know, billionaires from becoming billionaires. And there was a time in my life where I believed that. But Bitcoin has taught me where the problem really is, and also it has taught me to just be to just take it in my own hands. Like I am the only one who can change my fate, who can change where my life ends, and you have to do and give everything for it. You have to work hard. You have to build up things. You can always just nag and say, "Oh, but the fiat system is so unfair, and the state is so destructive, and blah blah blah." Still, you are the one having your fate in your hands, and I think that is what Bitcoin taught me somehow. Before Bitcoin, I was in German, you would say a Konsumopfer, like a consuming all day. I don't know. I think I bought a new pair of sneakers like every month. I wanted to have a cool car. Blah 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 blah. Like those first years where you start earning money and think you're the king of the world, and you just want to, I don't know if it's impressing others or yourself, or if it's just I don't know, trying to be someone you're not. But Bitcoin taught me how important savings is, how important planning the future is, and of course, often in your life, especially with family and loved ones, you should be in the moment. No question about that. You should enjoy the moment. But I don't think you should get your plans and your future out of this equation. And that's what Bitcoin taught me, I'd say.
Awesome. I love that. Sneakers every month. Wow, that's a lot.
Like that was just a stupid example, but I don't know. I don't know if you can relate to this. Maybe you just skipped that. You're a little younger than I am, I guess. But when I was in my early 20s, I was just like, "Wow, there's so much money coming onto my bank account every month. Awesome! I just do whatever the fuck I want." And like, I don't know, when I was 26, 27, I was just like, "What the fuck am I doing here? That doesn't make any sense." But I don't really regret it, because I think I needed those years of being of consumerism to just realize how stupid it was.
It's super interesting when you, because I never had that phase where I consumed a lot, but I made one big purchase that I regret, but also not regret. So from the age of, like, I always saved. I remember when I was in school, my mom gave me, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 euros for lunch with me. So it was like my lunch money. I always took like 1-2 euros out of it. Like literally,
nice.
I always was a saver all my life. That's one thing that Bitcoin didn't bring to me, that I see Bitcoin brings to a lot of people, because I was always a saver. But then there was this one weird moment where I got into investing, and all of a sudden I got a lot of money because I invested in the right moment in Tesla, in Facebook, in Apple, in all those tech stocks. And within 2 years, my net worth just grew so tremendously that my dream came very close. I was invested in Tesla. I wanted to have a Tesla. And I remember there was like this moment 1 year where I even made a post about it on Instagram back in the day, where I said like, "Oh, I wish I could own a Tesla," and I went to the dealership and just like sat in it and stuff like that. 1 year later, stock market blew up, and I actually could afford one. And I actually sold all my Tesla stock and bought a Tesla. And it was such a stupid decision. I regret that so much, but I also don't regret it because I learned a lot from that. First of all,
that's what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. You learn a lot from that. So after 2 months, 3 months, the car is just a car. Like it's fun the first 2-3 months, and then it's not fun anymore. It's just like a car. Then it becomes a convenience, and stuff like that. And I sold it afterwards. Now I don't have a car at all, and I live as minimalistic as anyone can be, even though I have a way better income than when I had the Tesla, which is a funny thing. I look now way more broke than I did like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's some lessons in there, but some people have to learn it the hard way, like me, with buying a stupid thing and losing a lot of money.
Absolutely. And just to maybe get a little more precise here, what I'm like, I wouldn't even say recommend, but what I'm talking about here is not taking your Bitcoin with you to the grave, right? It's just, there are bigger things and way more important goals to financially reach and then consume at a later stage of life than cars, sneakers, the newest iPhone, the bigger TV, blah, 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 blah. There's just bigger things creating way more, I'd say, happiness than those little things that we think make us happy. But then, as you said, after a month, the car is just a convenience, and after a year, it's just a liability. And then you think, oh, it just loses value. Damn it, what have I done?
Yeah, there's a big difference between living a life and consumerism. So the one thing is like,
that's what I meant.
Exactly. The one thing is like, I just buy things to fill a void of like, I want to have enjoyment from that. And the other thing is, I want to enjoy life. For example, buying new sneakers every month is definitely a consumerism thing. I have my sneakers usually like 1 or 2 years. And a thing of like enjoying life is, hey, I worked really hard, I can step down and can only work 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week or 15 hours a week and spend more time with my family, spend more time with my friends because I have a Bitcoin stack that can support that lifestyle. That's enjoying life.
Exactly. Or for example, I would never recommend someone spending lots of money for good food. I would never say to them, that's dumb, just save more money, blah, 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 because what they do is having a low time preference on their health and body. You know, and that I'd never call this consumerism if it's just about good quality, high quality foods. And I think you nailed it perfectly. There's a big difference between like living a life and trying to living a fulfilled and happy life and fiat consumerism.
What do you like to spoil on? Like, what are your things that you like to spend your Bitcoin on?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, although I'm not super picky there, but I'd say good food is a thing. And for me personally, like one big goal is, although it is economically idiotic, and I know that, I love like Austrian economics and understanding economy, but one big goal for sure for me is building or having a home for your family. I mean, that's one thing I'd offer a lot of, I don't know, in other forms, wealth. I'd sacrifice for having that wealth for my family. Like I think having that home that is yours, although in a fiat state it's not really yours, but you know what I mean. Just enables a whole different level in building up your family and having that one spot that is yours that you can create the way you want. That is something I'd say is worth spending your Bitcoin on, definitely.
That is also something which will be really hard to resist when a small portion of your Bitcoin can all of a sudden buy you your dream home. That's something I think a lot of Bitcoiners, and I hear that a lot actually from Bitcoiners who want to say like, I want to own my company, I want to own my home, and I want to own my Bitcoin. Those are the three things basically I want to own. All the rest of it, like, why should I own it? Yeah, you can also own your car and you own your computer and stuff like that. But the big things that you want to own,
of course, and I really align with that. I totally get the mantra of 100% Bitcoin, only Bitcoin. It will be the best performing asset over the years, and that's true. But I think an enjoyable life is not only about having everything you have in the best performing asset, but also in like building a happy life, building maybe a future for your family or future generations, or enabling them to grow up in a thing in a spot they can confidently call their home. Yeah. At the end of the day, money is maybe the most important technology we have, but still, it's just money.
Yeah, that's very true. I have 1,000 more questions, but I think we're already over like 1 hour. So I'll start with the first and routine question, which is always the same question for each guest. And the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
That is a good one. I think maybe not learning from me, but learning from my example is that you can find your Ikigai if you want to. You can find your dream job if you want to. I've studied mechanical engineering, and I've been quite good at that, but it never fulfilled me. And after I understood and found Bitcoin, I was so obsessed with it and with economics and with understanding it and with bringing Bitcoin to other people and making other people understand Bitcoin, that everything I wanted to achieve is working in this space full time. And after a couple of years, I totally managed to do that now. I have Apricomedia as a publishing company. That is one of those foundations. I'm working for and with Confinity, which is another of those foundations. and this really like forget money and salary and blah blah blah. This really improved my life so hard because since I'm working full time in Bitcoin, I didn't have one Monday where I said like, oh fuck, I'm so pissed. I really don't want to work today. I don't have that anymore, and I think this is one of the greatest achievements you can have. I don't know if this lasts forever. Maybe in like 5 years, I said like, oh okay, I hate Mondays again. Maybe, who knows? Who knows what the future will bring? But for now, I think I couldn't be happier with the all over setup, and I'm absolutely not talking about money here.
Oh man, I love that. And I don't know, you probably are aware of that book. It's one book that I read that was really cool and helped me in my way to the Ikigai. How to Ikigai? I think that's the one I read. Are you aware of that book, probably?
I mean, I'm aware of that. The concept itself, I think, stems from a book, as far as I know, like from a Japanese guy, I think. But actually, I haven't read the book itself. I just heard about the concept and saw the graphic that shows the different circles and what spots your Ikigai has to hit to make a living of it. And I've seen that graphic once, and I was blown away and frustrated at the same time because I've seen it and it was so logical for me. But I thought, I have no idea what that is for me. And then one day I realized it was Bitcoin. And I realized that, I don't know, 1 or 2 years after having the first touch points with Bitcoin, I realized, oh, I actually found my Ikigai. Interesting. How can I make it work? But the most frustrating thing was not knowing what it is. So, and if that book helps people find it, even without reading it, I can recommend you read it, because bringing you near or closer to that Ikigai has exponential effects on your life happiness, I'd say.
100%. It definitely helped me. And it really gives perspective of not only the how, but the why it is so important on case studies, on like real life examples of Ikigai, and also like inspirations of how you could actually do it, because there's like, oh, you have a job that pays the bills, and it's not easy to go out from that. So there are like really solid advice in there from the guy Tim Tamashiro, apparently. Yeah, I only know that book. I just heard it on Audible. It was a really good book. I liked it. Really cool. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest is. Yeah, and the previous guest asked you the question: who is the most thought-provoking Bitcoiner for you personally? And as you are really entrenched in the German-speaking area, maybe it's interesting. One guy in German from the German community and one guy from the English community. Yeah, one guy for each one, if you have one.
Do you mean thought-provoking in provoking thoughts in the general public, or in provoking my thoughts?
For you personally, I would say. I mean, the question comes from the previous guest, so I can only guess what he meant. But I would say for you personally.
Oh, that's a really, really tough one. I don't know if I have one for the German-speaking audience. Maybe I'd need another minute for that. For the English-speaking audience, who always was very thought-provoking for me was Eric Voskuil. Who wrote Crypto Economics, and who has, I'd say, who is one of the best critiques of Bitcoin. Like, he's a Bitcoiner himself, but he has very valid critiques, but as well has lots of critique that sounds valid, but when looking closely, in my opinion, isn't. And so I think, without having read his book, to be honest, just seeing on how and what he's arguing on Twitter or on X, he has always been pretty thought-provoking, and I hate it and like that, because I think that's what we need. The best Bitcoin critiques mostly are Bitcoiners. That's a funny thing. Yeah, so I think it would be Eric. In the German speaking space, who's the most thought-provoking? Couldn't really name anyone, but what I like in general from Bitcoiners is challenging Bitcoiners' narratives, like kind of what we've done like a couple of minutes ago. Yeah, is it that you should only have Bitcoin and never sell and never have anything else? Maybe it's not. Maybe that's not how you have a really enjoyable life at the end of the day. Yeah, I couldn't name you anyone in German. I'm sorry.
Never sell your Bitcoin, but spend them.
Exactly.
Really cool. Thank you so much, Fab, for taking the time and also for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Sure. You can go to fabthefox.com, which is a website that just links to my link tree where you can find everything I'm doing. Regarding social media activity, I'm most active on my X profile, which you will probably put into the show notes anyway. So you'll find me on X. You can contact me there. You can interact with me there. Yeah, and as I said, on the from X or on the website I mentioned, you can find all my links and take a look at what I'm doing in this space.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fab, for taking the time. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.